If you recently lost your job and your health coverage due to the COVID-19 pandemic and you think you may be eligible for Medicare, you probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
Being prepared and trained is the best way to keep your family safe. The best way to be prepared is to learn from those who've spent a lifetime protecting us. Barnes Safety and Consulting LLC offers concealed carry classes with instructors who are law enforcement officers active and retired with more than 100 years of law enforcement experience. Monthly classes are taught year-round with private classes and special group rates available. Classes are $75 and held in the Bailey area. Call or text 1-800-653-0643. Get your concealed carry permit and avoid becoming a victim.
Welcome to the K-Files. I am Lindell. I have with me Lieutenant Seifman with the Rocky Mount Police Department.
Good morning, Lindell.
Good morning, sir. We are going to talk about a case that that Lieutenant Seifman has brought with us, and then we're going to talk about a case that we addressed last year to kind of bring people up to speed on that one.
All right.
So what have you brought us today, sir?
Today we have Devonta Eberg, and Devonta was 18 years old when he was killed, gunned down back in June of 2014. On 6/13/14, just after midnight, around 12:30 in the morning, we responded to shots fired at 723 Branch Street. And when the officers arrived, they discovered Mr. Eberg on the ground near the apartments complex. You can see the pictures there on the screen. Life-saving measures were attempted, however, they were not successful, and Mr. Eberg succumbed to his injuries at that time. We interviewed witnesses, folks that were on scene. There were actually 4 people that were shot. 2 showed up out at the hospital, to include Devonta's brother, and they were treated and survived their gunshot wounds. However, we have not developed any suspects at this time. We got some witnesses give us a little bit of information. From those that were there, what we've gathered is the shooters came from both sides of the building and fired multiple shots, and the 4 that were struck were out front. They were getting ready to cook, which is an odd time to cook, but that's what it said in the report, was they were getting ready to cook on the grill when the shots rang out. There were some news stories on it. I saw that I think a TV 11 did a news story on it, but unfortunately there have been no witnesses to come forward, and no one that was on scene has provided any suspect information that has panned out at this point. So we're asking the public, if they have any information, to please come forward and share that information with us anonymously through either the Crime Stoppers. You can call Crime Stoppers at 972-1111. I'm sorry, 977-1111. 972-1111 is the city's line, and we get that call quite frequently. So dial 977-1111 and leave your tip on Crime Stoppers. We have Text a Tip, which is completely anonymous as well. If you'll text RMPOL, then your message to crimes, which is 274-637. And so you text, you address it at 274-637, and then start off with RMPOL, and then a space, and then your tip, and we receive that via email, and we can actually respond back and forth with the person. However, their anonymity is guaranteed 100% on that.
Nice.
We've talked about that before. You can also call the CID, Criminal Investigation Divisions at the Police Department if you want to speak to a person. In person, it's 972-1450 is the line into CID.
Hey, Brittany, can you put the picture of the house up again, please? So you said they came from both sides, so they were in front?
Yeah, everybody was there in front towards the back of the complex is where it occurred.
Okay, and then they came around from both sides, like a crossfire? I mean, like a planned
It was,
situation?
there's no doubt it was.
That's what I
some sort of
wanted to look at
ambush.
that picture again, so they came from around the house.
Yeah, shell casings
both
were
sides.
located at both ends of the apartment complex.
Crossfire. So I mean, they intended. I mean, you know, it was. I guess when you shoot someone, it's intentional. But I mean, this was
Correct.
This was a planned
Somebody was
situation.
targeted, yeah,
Right.
specifically targeted in that group.
Folks, the hotline number there is 252-406-6736. So if you know anything about this case, please give any of the information that the lieutenant gave or that number. Call and help out, because you can make a little bit of cash out of it, and you can
Bring closure to a
exactly,
family.
absolutely. And you know, speaking of closure, the other case that we were going to talk about today, Mr. Mercer. I mean, I know that that family's still hurting, I'm sure.
Most definitely.
The way that he was killed in that situation.
That's right.
We've talked about this a couple times on the show. I know we did it originally, and then we did a recap on it at
December.
the end of the year. Yes,
Right.
sir. So, I mean, but for folks who haven't heard or haven't seen it lately, can you kind of go over that one as well?
Yeah, we're kind of hoping that the growing audience is going to be able to pick up on some of the older cases that we did before
Yeah, nice.
and help us out. So on September 15th of 2017, around 9:42 in the morning, broad daylight, young Keenan Mercer, 21 years old, was cutting grass that morning. He had left to go get some gas for his mower, rode his bike up to the BP station on West Raleigh Boulevard, and on his route back off of West Haven onto Walnut, and then Walnut he approached Pine Street to head back up towards Hammond Street where he lived. He encountered a gentleman that came from between the houses, and they had words, and then shots were fired according to the witnesses, and he succumbed to his wounds there on the scene. Shot dead, and he was, according to his family, he was working to make money so he could get him some new clothes so he could go to his job that he was supposed to start.
Right. Oh no. Okay. So he was. I thought it was job. So he was.
I believe he had already gotten the job.
Okay.
And was to start either that day or very soon. So he was trying to get him some clothes to wear to work, and we talked about before where he had some previous gang ties. But
Yeah,
separated.
not an angel, but apparently trying to.
Correct. Trying to better his life. That's right. And definitely didn't deserve to be shot down in the street. And we know broad daylight, 9:42 in the morning, it wasn't the busiest of intersections, but somebody could or should have seen something at that hour. It wasn't dark. Nobody should have been sleeping at that point. So we're hoping that somebody saw something, heard something. It's been a little while now. People talk. Maybe somebody's heard something. We'll take whatever information we can get.
That was pretty. I didn't realize that before. So it was 9
About 9:42 in the morning.
in the morning. Wow. Yeah, there should have been people up going to work, coming.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay. Folks, again, the information, the hotline 252-406-6736, the text and tip, and the Crime Stoppers number. If you know anything about any of these cases, give law enforcement a call, and let's take care of some of this for the family, and get somebody off the street, because if they're going to shoot and kill one person, they're going to
Easily could do it again. If they haven't already done it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lieutenant, I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you always bringing the pictures for folks to look at. I think that's important. It helps set the scene for them and let them see, exactly what we're talking about. And a lot of those pictures have never been seen by the public, right? So
Sometimes, yeah.
it's good for them to see. All right, folks, we will be back in just a few minutes, and we're going to talk about a case that one of the most notorious crimes in North Carolina history, I think, as soon as we get back.
All right.
If you recently lost your job and your health coverage due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and you think you may be eligible for Medicare, you probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
Being prepared and trained is the best way to keep your family safe. The best way to be prepared is to learn from those who've spent a lifetime protecting us. Barnes Safety and Consulting LLC offers concealed carry classes with instructors who are law enforcement officers active and retired with more than 100 years of law enforcement experience. Monthly classes are taught year-round with private classes and special group rates available. Classes are $75 and held in the Bailey area. Call or text 1-800-653-0643. Get your concealed carry permit and avoid becoming a victim.
Okay, and welcome back to the K-Files. And don't forget that we have a $15,000 purse. So you could get up to $15,000 if you call 406-6736, our hotline, and report any tip that you may have, big or small. Nothing is too small.
Missing persons, unidentified bodies.
Absolutely.
Unsolved murders.
Absolutely.
I mean,
any of the above.
If your neighbor's selling weed, call Crime Stoppers.
Absolutely.
If your neighbor killed somebody, call us.
That's right.
A lot of people have asked me to address this case since I started this, and I've written about it only one time, but I think I found out something very important when I did write about it, so I'm going to share that with everybody today. Most people have heard about this case in one way or another. They may not know all the details, but it certainly has been passed around a lot. And we're talking about the small town of Windsor. Have you ever been there? Mm-mm. The small town of Windsor. It's in Berkeley County.
Yeah, I have been. I take that back. I have been in Windsor.
It is in Berkeley County. I went there when I wrote about this case a couple years ago.
I've been through it.
Yeah,
that's what I'll say.
I think most people have been through it. All right, so Windsor, you can see on this map where it is in relation to Rocky Mount. Windsor is the red dot. I mean, it didn't even show up on the map, so I mean that's how small it is. So, but you can see from Rocky Mount, you go down 64 and go up 13, and you get there. All right, so it's a very small, quiet town. Hardly any crime. I mean, typical small North Carolina town like that. But it is the location of one of North Carolina's most grisly murders, for sure. If you look at when you Google North Carolina and murder, this is usually what comes up.
Right.
That is how what a case that it is. So on June 6, 1993, we're talking about the Below restaurant, the Below grocery store in Windsor. Now, I had originally had it confused with the Bilo. Bilo is a national chain that's all over the place.
Okay.
That's B-I-L-O. Below is a local grocery store, B-E-L-O. So we're the play on words, below, like five and below.
Below, right,
below.
right.
Okay. So on June 6, 1993, the store manager and the clerk locked up early so a 4-man crew could wax the floor. This was a Sunday afternoon.
Right,
It was
and
about
I've heard
six-
of people doing that.
Yeah, it was about
yeah.
6 o'clock in the afternoon. They closed early on Sundays. They cleaned the floors and did some other stuff.
Okay.
Normal everyday stuff, right? The store manager, I'm sure he did it hundreds of times, right? Locked up early,
Right.
let the crew in, they cleaned the floors. I was at Food Lion in Spring Hill, like, I think night before, and we always end up seeming to go in the grocery store at closing time, and they're always,
I do that
and the people were already in there cleaning the floor. So, I mean, it happens all the time everywhere. All right, so, but on this particular night, there was a man hiding in the store, waiting for them to close. I don't know whether he knew that the 4-man
I was
cleaning
going to
crew
say, it
was gonna
sounds
be
like
there
to
or not.
me he knew
Right.
something.
He knew something. So, but I've always wondered whether he thought there would be 2 people there compared to 6 people.
Right.
Right.
And that makes sense.
So, anyway, he was hiding in the store when it closed. So I guess he was kind of, whether he planned it or not, he was in it then, right? So he had 6 people to deal with. So he had a 45 caliber handgun, and he forced everybody to tie themselves up.
Oh, gosh.
He found dog leashes and duct tape that was for sale in the store, and he used the dog leashes and the duct tape
Wow.
to have everybody tie themselves up, which again speaks to that I don't think he was prepared to have that many people in the store
Exactly.
when he got there, because he didn't have anything with him. So he had everybody tie themselves up with dog leashes and duct tape. Okay, and then he stacked them on top of each other in the middle of the store like cordwood, right? I mean, he laid two down, 2 more on top of them, 2 more on top of them, and then he just started shooting into the pile, right? So he hit he hit 5 of the 6 people. One person at the bottom escaped unharmed.
That's awful.
Absolutely. 3 people died on the spot there, and those 3 people would be Bud Cecil, Brittany. There we go. That's Bud. He was the store manager. He was shot dead. Joyce Reason, she was the store clerk. She was shot dead, and Johnny Rankins was one of the floor cleaners. He was shot dead. And then 2 other floor cleaners were seriously wounded, but taken to the hospital and survived. And then the guy at the bottom made it. And there's the Belo crime scene photo that was obviously taken that night.
Right.
And we're talking about 1993.
I wonder how many employees they had.
I don't know, probably, grocery store that size, 20, 30.
Yeah.
You know? Well, I mean, on a Sunday afternoon, though, there was only at closing time, there was only the clerk and the store manager.
Oh,
So
that
maybe they
just
didn't have
sounds
a lot.
like an inside job to me.
Yeah, a lot of people were always skeptical of the one person who wasn't injured.
I mean, you may not know the shooter, but
Right.
the shooter could have found out information.
That's right.
From an employee.
I mean, I think that he did know enough to be there at closing time.
Yeah.
But
On a
I
night
still,
that there weren't going to be a lot of people,
Right.
and he knew that.
But I still have, I still have problems accepting that he knew the floor crew would be there. I mean, because
Yeah.
why would you try to rob 6 people when you could just rob
Yeah,
2 people?
that's
So I mean,
true.
I feel like he knew enough to be there at closing time to
Exactly.
hide. I guess he hid in the bathroom. I'm not sure where he hid at, but he knew enough to hide
Right.
and wait for closing time. But he didn't know enough to know that 4 other people would be there. And then he had them tied up. He didn't have to shoot them. Mm-hmm. But the survivors, their accounts, he was really worried about being identified, and promised. He made the people promise they wouldn't identify him. But then he shot him anyway. So
Golly.
all right. So my part in all of this is I wrote when I was doing the K files for the newspapers. I wrote about this case a few years ago, and I got a hold of one of the investigators who's retired now, and he said that there was a suspect sketch that they released, and he says he felt like this sketch actually hurt the case rather than help it.
Really?
Yeah, and the reason why is like, a lot of times when cops will give out a description, like they'll say a dark colored sedan instead of saying a Ford. Because even though they think it's probably Ford, now if they have video of it or something, that's different. But I mean, if they're just going by an eyewitness thing and they say a Ford, then maybe it wasn't a Ford, maybe it was a Chevy and the witness got it wrong.
Right.
So, but if you put out that we're looking for a dark colored Ford, then that limits what people, they may, a potential tipster or witness might have known something about a dark colored Chevy.
Right.
But they don't call it in because the cops said they're looking for a Ford. So this guy said that that's what happened in this case, that sketch was very specific, but he don't think that's what the guy looked like.
Wow.
So it didn't help none. And we've seen, when we do the unidentified thing, we've seen where some of these sketches from years ago don't look much like the person.
Yeah.
So they're thinking, he's saying that this sketch didn't help out at all. So according to the victims, ignoring the sketch, right? Just they might have been better off just putting out this description.
Right.
But the suspect is black. He's got a medium complexion, 30 to 35 years old. He's got a slender build, military style haircut, light brown slanted eyes, and a narrow nose. So, if they'd been better just to put out that physical description.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I mean, if you see that sketch and it doesn't immediately match what you've got.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
So the FBI got involved because I mean the how gruesome the case was. With 3 people dead.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
that. This is the FBI profile that they came up with of the suspect, right? So, if so first you take this physical description, and then you match it with his profile. So they said he's likely an ex-con who had been previously convicted of serious crimes.
Wow.
He was probably a model prisoner. I'm always fascinated how these profilers know this stuff, but I mean, it's almost always right? So he was possibly affiliated with religious groups while he was locked up, one of those jailhouse Jesus people. The murders were probably not his first murder, right? He probably killed other people before that. He was a very persuasive individual, right? He could, he persuaded 6 people to to tie themselves up. He had a friendly demeanor. He's a very composed person. He is a serious threat to friends and family. Of course, I mean, this was almost 30 years ago. We don't know where this cat's at now. And he had ties to the community because of that grocery store is set off the road. It's not somewhere that, it's in town. It's not somewhere that...
Yeah, and I can imagine the little town of Windsor, like you said, they don't see a lot of crime. They don't have a lot of crime, and something like as heinous as this happens.
Exactly.
Wow.
A lot of the information...
They're all probably freaked out there.
Right.
All the citizens there are probably freaked out.
Oh, yeah, they still are
At
to
the
this
time.
They still are to this day.
When did this happen? Did
1993.
93.
June of 93.
Oh, gosh.
Now, this when I was looking at this in the last couple weeks, I found a book by a guy named Jeb Bond who lives there. It's called Closing Time. It's actually a really good book. I've flipped through it. I haven't read it cover to cover, but I have flipped through it. I've got a lot of information out of it. Mr. Bond in his book developed a second suspect that I hadn't seen reported anywhere else. So I mean, he'd done some good investigating for this book. And that suspect drove a white car, right? It's all they really have on that suspect. It was the car was never located or identified. The license plate number, they didn't get the license plate number. They didn't have a good make or model on the car.
Right.
But they say that the driver was a black man with a dark complexion in his mid-30s. He was a very muscular guy, and he was at least 6 feet tall, right? So totally different description from the other guy.
Right.
So, you know, who knows really at this point? I mean, the guy that I talked to was investigated the case for Windsor. He went on to work with the Bertie County Sheriff's Office. You know, so he's been involved in this case for years. He says they don't have a clue who did it. It's just a complete whodunit. Not one of those cases where you have a suspect but you can't prove it. I mean,
Right.
they don't, you know, they don't have a clue. So you had mentioned about how the community was tore up about this, right? And
Right.
everything. Here's a photo from a 2018 local newspaper. That's 25 years, and that was a few years ago. That was 2018. So, you know, we're close to, 30. We're not very far from 30. 25 years since terrible murders and no closure, right? So, the town is, and I was, when this happened, I was in the Navy, so there's my alibi, right? I was in the Navy, but I still heard about this case.
Right.
You know, and this was in the early 90s when, I mean, it's not like the internet is today where you hear about everything before it happens. I mean, this was in the 1990s, and I still heard about this case. This was something that just didn't happen in a town like that, and they weren't prepared to investigate it. They, like I said, they brought in the SBI, the FBI. You know, they did everything they could, but I think you know, the law enforcement guy who was a really high-ranking guy. I'm not trying to hide his identity, honestly. I just couldn't remember, and the story that I wrote about him has been lost to the internet monster. And one of the most frustrating things about newspapers to me is when they switch servers, whatever was on there before is gone. You think that, with the internet it's always going to be there.
Right.
You know, but they switch servers and they're gone, which is another plug I can put in for the library, because if I'd have took the time, you can go to the library, folks, go down to Braswell Library, go to the second floor of the Historical Archives, and they have every telegram that's ever been printed on file. So you can go, and actually a couple years ago, they took them off microfiche. Well, they're still on microfiche, but what they did was they submitted all those microfiche to a company that digitized them. So I used to have to go through and look at, you know, hours and hours of stuff to try to find one specific thing. Now you can go to the library, you can sit down at a computer, type in the words that you want, and it'll give you every newspaper in the Telegram's 200-year history or however long it's been out, and it'll give you every article with that keyword in it.
Right.
So it's a very good tool. I mean, believe me. So again, so 1993 June, the guy's hiding in the store.
Do you think he lived around there?
Well, the FBI does. The FBI said he definitely had family. He definitely had family there. Yeah, and they think he's an ex-con, and they think that he had killed people before. So yeah, and he meant to kill all 6 of them. I mean, it's just, well, people say that the 6th guy that wasn't injured that was involved in, I don't know about that. But anyway, he shot into a pile of 6 people, killed 3 of them, seriously injured 2 more of them, and then walked away. And, you know, he's a bad dude. If somebody else hasn't killed him, or he's not more than likely he's probably in prison serving life for some other crime. But, somehow we need, if anybody knows anything about this case, you can call the hotline right there, 252-406-6736, or call the local authorities. But something needs to be done about this guy. Definitely a threat to...
He needs to be off the street really bad if he's not.
If he's not, right. All right, that's all I got for that. We will be back in a few minutes with Unidentified.
If you recently lost your job and your health coverage due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and you think you may be eligible for Medicare, you probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
Being prepared and trained is the best way to keep your family safe. The best way to be prepared is to learn from those who've spent a lifetime protecting us. Barnes Safety and Consulting LLC offers concealed carry classes with instructors who are law enforcement officers active and retired with more than 100 years of law enforcement experience. Monthly classes are taught year-round with private classes and special group rates available. Classes are $75 and held in the Bailey area. Call or text 1-800-653-0643. Get your concealed carry permit and avoid becoming a victim.